Okay, so my neighbor helped me put the barrel on. It was just too hard for one person. It was easy for both of us. We put the pipe in and we'll test it out. So this is just made of wood for the test. Guys, I'm adding this. The video starts again in 1 minute, just so everybody understands what's going on here. The stove up to about 20 rows is the exact same stove from the past few videos. The coal chimney, stack stove, etc. It's the same stove up to 20 rows. Then at 20 rows, it's only a 4-brick mini chimney. I'm going to put the barrel over top of the smaller chimney. That circle thing is cut out to the size of the barrel. I'm using wood just for the test. It would be really cool if anybody wants to build a stove to have somebody cut a piece of soapstone or granite. And then the barrel goes over top the smaller chimney, and there's about a 4 or 5 inch gap at the top. Then it vents out the bottom. So it's the same principle of a rocket stove. The heat blasts up, hits the top of the barrel, funnels down the sides of the barrel, and finds its way out of the bottom. Hey everybody, it's Stove Talk with Matt. This is the new design we're going to try. Maybe it'll be the end of the rocket stove. It's going to incorporate a barrel, like a rocket stove, on top of where the stack gets small. And again, the hope is it could be the best of both worlds. Could be for coal and for wood. You get the immediate heat of the barrel up top. The stack is just 4 bricks. And then, like the coal stack chimney stove in the last video or two, this is 6 bricks. And I'm leaving I'm not like a rocket stove. I'm not just leaving an 1.5 inches to 2 inches between the top brick and the barrel. I'm leaving like 5 inches just because I don't want to block it for my first test. I don't want to block it off and make a real small space between the barrel and the top. That's why I put that little extra brick. The vent, you can see the vent when the barrel's turned upside down. The vent is going to be, towards the bottom, and then I'll have a 6-inch pipe. I'll just jam in that hole, and it'll be out the left side. So that little brick up top just keeps the air a little bit more towards the other side of the barrel, so the barrel's heated up evenly. So we'll see. I think if it's going to work well, and the key is if it smokes. I don't like any design that smokes. If it doesn't smoke, it's going to be a really, really good design. I still just have that. Let's see if you can see, and I still just have that. Finally, remember the name, hardware cloth in there, and it's now survived 4 Major League coal tests. But you couldn't leave that hardware cloth from Home Depot in there. It would eventually burn out. It's if you were building the stove permanently. My high flame door's holding up well. I just put in with it's mostly like 4 parts mud, 1 part sand, and 1 part type S cement. Just mud, yeah, just 4 parts dirt. My dirt around here has a high clay content anyway. 1 part or 2 parts sand and 1 part type S. So when I go to break the stove down, it'll just come right out. I won't have to chip at the bricks too long. So the last thing I wanted to show you is, the most important part. For the test, I just made this wooden. Oh, it's my neighbor calling. He's got to help me put the barrel on top of the stove. So this is just made of wood for the test. You can see how that's just the 4 brick stack on the left over 6 bricks. This is I just stacked this up to hold this up. The idea is if this stove works, you'd get a piece of soapstone or granite. It would actually be pretty cool. Like maybe a piece that your granite company or the kitchen counter company's throwing out. You probably have to pay them, of course, to have the cuts done. You'd drop a piece of granite down over top, and then that would hold. That's of course a cutout of the exact same size of the bottom of the barrel. But that would be cool if it works, to get a piece of granite or soapstone. You could use a 1/2 inch hardy backer board, cement board, if you know, to make the stove for cheap. And I'm gonna drop some insulation down in there, so that, you know, I don't only need that wood to hold up for a few tests. I'm just gonna pack it with some mineral wool. It should give it enough where it's not gonna just ignite on me. Okay, the test is just about 3 minutes old. It's a little bit of smoke. I'm not loving that, but again, everything's ice cold. We'll see what it looks like when it's been going about 10 minutes. There's your test for smoke. 10 minutes, not now. Everything's too cold. Okay, these bricks aren't mortared, so everything starts pouring out again when it's cold. Stove that works properly, this should go away too in about 10 minutes. Okay, I added the big wood about 5 minutes ago, maybe 7 minutes ago. Smoke's down a lot. It's pretty good. The top of the barrel, I took a temperature reading, is around 500. And this wood is some big logs that haven't fully caught yet, so it's going to smoke. I hope the smoke goes away probably in 5 minutes. Smoke's way down. Looks good. Here's a little advantage I didn't think of. The barrel is up too high for kids to get hurt. Any little toddlers. This doesn't get that hot, this brick. Oh, this does. Watch this. So, way above any height where a little one could be hurt. Smoke's looking good. Maybe we have a winner here. Bottom's only 100. It gets very hot very quickly as you move up. 200, 270. Top of the barrel is 460. Let's do this side. 140, 200, 260. About 450. This is wood. I shoved a bunch of mineral wool. Lined it with 2 inches of mineral wool, so this wood is not getting hot enough to burn. We have about 4 pieces of good sized wood in there. Okay, the large wood's been burning for about 10 minutes, maybe a little bit more. There's a little smoke. I mean, it's not bad at all. It is not bad. Top of the barrel, first foot down, about 400 to 500 degrees, 420 to 480. The bottom of the barrel is pretty cold, but hopefully, we'll get these bricks to heat up and radiate out the thermal mass for a few hours after the stove goes out. There's no leaking of smoke pushing out. Obviously, there's way too much air, of course, just for the test. Once you get everything going like now, you choke it way down, block like 90% of that off, and then try to keep your wood going as long as possible. But a nice advantage of this setup is I don't know why I would operate any differently with coal. I'll try it if I can sometime, but coal or wood. I mean, the barrel is high enough up where, it would take several years probably for the heat of the coal to kind of cause a problem with the top of the barrel. And like some rocket stove setups, I don't have, again, that thin riser at the top that starts right where the barrel starts of just 4 bricks. It's only a half brick wide. I don't have that blasting up into the top of the barrel like a rocket stove. It's not 1.5 inches or 2 inches. It's see those ripples. It's about a 4-inch gap. You don't want it to move that fast. You don't want it to be like a rocket stove and just suck everything through. You want it to be a little bit slower. By creating the gap at the top, 4 to 5 inches, things move a little bit more slowly. The barrel heats up a little bit better. Things move a little bit faster if the gap's smaller. So people make these rocket stoves, these batch boxes, where they put the, their riser right into a gigantic thermal mass of a square of bricks, and there's like 2 feet between the riser and the top of the brick box. I don't know. That just slows everything down too much. I think I'd go up to about 6 or 8 inch gap. But anyway. Okay, this is the detailed back-end discussion if anybody wants to build it. Guys, I forgot to mention this in other videos, but one of the reasons I do this is all these stove companies are going out of business. They're being put out of business by the Al Gore coalition. And I just want people to see that we can do this ourselves. If they put all the stove companies out of business, just a way of, to think differently and see how simple some of these stove designs are. With Firebrick, we can do this ourselves. They'll never be able to keep us from having a wood stove because we don't need the stove companies anymore. In fact, the ones you build yourself are better than the ones that the stove companies can make. So again, the last few videos is like this coal stacked chimney. The first 20 rows of Firebrick is the same stove. Then at 20 rows up, the stack becomes much smaller. If you haven't seen the other videos, the 20 rows up, each row is 6 bricks, fire bricks. 2 across the front, 1 on each side, 2 across the back. Each row is 6 fire bricks. Creates an exact and perfect square. So the opening for the wood and the gases and smoke is exactly 2 fire bricks wide. But then at the top, the stack becomes very small. It's the smaller stack on top. Well, the piece of wood is cut to be placed around the smaller stack to hold the barrel. That's 4 fire bricks. So the internal chimney is only 1/2 fire brick, only 4.5 by 4.5. That's plenty. It seems like, that's too constrictive. All this dogma about, you can't go from a wide chimney into a small and all this bull crap. Sure you can. In a Russian stove, the lifting channels are much smaller than the descending channels. So what you see here is it's about 20 rows of fire bricks for 6 bricks each. So that would be 120 bricks. And then the smaller chimney that goes up into the barrel is 11 rows for my test. I liked it. I wouldn't go any higher and close off the top or make the top too tight like they do with a rocket stove or a J rocket stove. There's no reason for this type of stove. The smaller going up into the barrel, each row is 4 bricks and it's 11 rows high. I put that little concrete brick at the top on the side where it vents, on the side where the hole is, and the other chimney that you see, that was just a piece of pipe that I stuck in the side to vent it out the side of the hole. I just put that little one up there just so I didn't want the gases to, it has a mind of its own. They kind of know the quickest way out. So I didn't want them just to funnel down one side of the barrel and make that side 500 degrees and the other side 250 degrees. It's probably not necessary. But if you, I don't want to get into too much detail. I liked blocking off that one side a bit, and I found that when I did my temperature tests on the barrel, it was very consistent around all 360 degrees, which is what you want. So if you have a cabin or your homesteader, let's just compare this. Let's just do a fun exercise to a rocket stove. What should you build? And not a batch box rocket stove. The J rocket stoves that go up into the barrel. I just think for people, unless things are perfect, too much smoke kind of comes up out of the open top of the J. A batch box is better. Let's just compare the two. First off, here's a major league advantage. This can be used. I didn't do any tests for coal, but I don't think it would work any differently. The reason for the past few videos, this chimney coal stove, which this is like a hybrid. The last few videos is just basically a long, big, huge chimney that acts as a coal stove with baffles. This has no baffles, but it's like the best of both worlds. You get the metal from the barrel that heats up instantly. That'll act like a wood stove, and your mass of the 120 bricks on the bottom, and it's 11 rows times 4 plus 44 bricks on the top. That mass will heat up over time and radiate out for 2 or 3 or 4 hours. It's not a tremendous amount of mass, but you'll get radiant heat for 2 or 3 or 4 hours. So the advantage over a Batchbox rocket stove, number one, is a big one. That door there, the high flame door, and the way this is set up with a grate, you can put a 12-inch bed of coal in here, and it's good for 14 hours. I think this would work very similar. I should really try it with the coal. I don't know why restricting again, I think it's going to be just fine. Restricting the chimney up top is a little smaller. I don't know why it would be any different. So rocket stove, no coal. This is coal and wood. Huge advantage to this stove. For a disadvantage of this stove is using it just for wood, because it's a grate stove, which means the wood sits on metal slats, and the air is coming up through that open box at the bottom. And when the air comes up and pours through the wood, well, one, it does help with the smoke. It helps keep the smoke down, but you go through wood pretty darn quickly. Just always the way it is. When you can choke that air down at the bottom and block it off with bricks and pieces of metal, you'll burn through your wood more quickly than if you have like a Batchbox rocket stove on a hearth just sitting on fire brick. Another disadvantage for this stove over a rocket stove or Batchbox, over just say a wood stove, whenever you have a grate and you're putting your wood on a metal grate with huge air openings, there's never any coals in the morning. You can't just start it up again with coals. You have to relight every time. So that is a disadvantage to any sort of a grate stove. Also, if it's coal or wood, per what was mentioned in some of the last videos, we have to figure out how to make a shaker grate, which I'm going to have to test at some time. I just have that hardware cloth. It's held up to 6 tests. That the stainless steel, mesh stuff, it's like chicken wire you get at Home Depot for gardening. It's held up to 3 major coal tests, but you don't want to use it for a permanent stove, of course. I mean, it wouldn't last more than, 1 season. So, does the shaker grate that I proposed in prior videos, is that going to work? Where you put through like skewers on like a barbecue, or like foosball, whatever it might be. The skewers go through the bottom of below the door there and above the air door to hold the coal bed or to hold the wood. You don't need a shaker grate for any wood or anything like that, but if you're going to do a 12-inch bed of coal, you need a shaker grate. And can we make our own? I think it would work. Again, I hope I can test this for you guys. But you just shake each piece of metal each piece of metal sticking out 4 inches on each side. So you can just grab it and not shake it back and forth, but like up and down, or back and forth, but not side to side, like playing foosball. That would help. It wouldn't drop a lot of coal ash. You'd have to get underneath, and you'd have to be able to what's called flossing, dig out the bottom of the coal bed. But there's a big square opening at the bottom. A huge advantage of this stove versus a rocket stove or other stoves is it just so easy to shovel out your ashes. Everything's just going to drop right down through the grate. You can keep the stove going. You shovel out whenever. It's like when you try to shovel out your ashes, if you use a wood stove for 3 days and all this huge ash builds up, but you want to keep the stove going, it's such a hassle. You got to move all the coals, the red hot coals, over to the left side, and then you're shoveling out hot ash. It's just, and then it's so hot, it just puffs up into your house. This ash you can make your ash pit even larger. If you have the money to buy more bricks. The ash drops down, it gets cool, easy to shovel out. When you shovel hot ash, it just flies up and you're all over your house. It's a mess. So that's an advantage to this type of stove. And it is a nice hybrid. You get heat from the barrel in 20 seconds. I mean, immediately the heat starts pouring out of the barrel. And of course, when the stove goes out, the barrel gets cold, but then the mass, what did we say it was? 120 bricks plus 44, like 164 or so bricks. That mass, that's, approaching 200 fire bricks. They're about 8 pounds, 8.5 pounds each. The fire bricks are 9 inches. They're big, they're heavy, and they do hold the cheaper fire bricks, not the kiln fire bricks or the super light fire bricks. They're the expensive ones on eBay. These are the less expensive ones you find at a brickyard or a place that sells cinder block to contractors. Usually has these fire bricks. The last time I looked, like $2.10 each. Here's an advantage to this stove over Batchbox rocket stove and other types of rocket stove, what I call the rocket stove nonsense. Inside the Batchbox, you need those angled cuts at the bottom. I mean, people think they need all this stuff. It doesn't do anything. Secondary air, you need that. You need the angle cuts at the bottom. You need all these special cuts as you construct your riser. You need angle cuts inside the riser for vortex. All I call it rocket stove nonsense. You don't need that stuff. It's nice if you want to do it and you want to just spend all this time and with your wet saw and all this stuff. It doesn't give you real much of it. It gives you 5%. It doesn't do much. The advantage of this is if somebody's off-grid or homesteading, yeah, it's going to be hard to get the fire bricks out there, but it's a lot easier to get the fire bricks out there piece by piece than to, carry a 500-pound or 450-pound wood stove that's all iron. And then to build it's one day. It's no problem. It's a piece of cake. I mean, literally just you'd have to let your door and everything set up and harden. So to build, let's just go over how you would do that. It's about $45 for a 40-pound bag of refractory or high-temperature refractory mortar. That fire brick is always best if you can afford the refractory mortar, but I'll give you other options in just a second. You put it on extremely thin. Dunk your fire brick, get it wet. If you can hold it under the water for 10 seconds, that's better. And then you put your refractory layer on extremely, extremely thin. The joints should be like you don't even have joints. I mean, 1/8 of an inch. The least. Sometimes some of the fire bricks they're not all. You should check wherever you buy them. Hopefully they're all perfectly I guess all perfectly cut. My luck with fire brick has been good, but every once in a while I'll get a little batch that I'll go 2 months later back to the same place, and it's a little bit shorter, and it really drives me nuts. It makes it hard to build these stoves unless they're all perfectly the same. And I like fire brick because they're symmetrical. 2 laying this way is the same as 1 across. The 4.5 plus 4.5 is exactly the same as 9. They're all perfectly symmetrical. So you can build this type of stove with fire brick. Regular bricks, you cannot do this unless you want to make hundreds of cuts with a wet saw. They don't go together symmetrically. 2 together is not the same as 1 on top. It's off by a quarter or half inch. I complain about that every time. It drives me crazy. Can't do that. With pavers you can, 4x8s, but fire bricks are better for this for a lot of reasons. But the main reason is they're just larger. 9 inches, you can build a full-size stove. It's a little bit of too small of a stove with pavers. That you only get a real small little internal chimney on the mini chimney up top. And again, in pavers, the heat of coal, one of the main advantages of this, wood or coal, you're absolutely going to need the fire brick for coal. It's just too hot. I don't know, at 300, 400, 500 degrees, sometimes more than wood. And you can't put red brick on top of fire brick. It gets complicated. They expand at different rates unless you know how to reinforce your stove exactly. You just have to. It's more expensive. You have to do the whole thing in fire brick. Can't mix and match red brick pavers and fire brick for this type of stove. There's a lot of reasons. It just gets real messy. If you can get the fire brick, if you get 165, 170 fire bricks, whatever, can build this in one day, no problem. And if you really want to build something that's going to, with refractory mortar and fire brick, that's going to last for, 25 years, the absolute best technique for applying refractory mortar is dunk your fire brick. It's very porous. It needs to not spray bottle. No, it has to be dunked underwater, 5 seconds, etc. Then I saw a Russian builder do this. This is absolutely the best way. It takes a lot of time. You're going to build a stove for 25 or 30 years, I would do it. You apply very quickly, butter a thin layer of refractory mortar on the fire brick. Then scrape it off. Then put it back on extremely thin. Then put your next layer on top. I don't know, it'll stick together and it'll hold immediately. The strength is better, especially if you want to keep working. It gets sticky. You can do it in one day. Refractory mortar is strange. If you just have like a piece of it and it just drops on the cement, I didn't know. I just didn't know how to deal with it for a long time. And there's no clear instructions on the packaging. You go, let's say you just drop a piece on the ground. You go the next day and you put it in your hands. It just crumbles in your fingers. Like, what is this? Doesn't hold shit. It's just the way it is. If the joints are really small, it works. It's still okay. It's not high strength refractory mortar. And don't mix refractory mortar with anything else. You mix it with lime or whatever, it sets up like in 10 seconds. It's weird stuff. Of course, all they have to do is put some nice directions on the bag, like don't mix with lime, don't mix with type S or type N, which I made all these mistakes, and put it on extremely thin. Make this type of stove like there is no joints. Refractory mortar, if you make like thick joints like your brick walled house, it doesn't work. It does not work with big joints. Anyway, I learned that lesson the hard way. If the damn makers of refractory mortar would just put a set of instructions and some advice on the side of the damn bag, I wouldn't, have wasted this and that and wasted hours and hours and hours. Anyway, you hammer it down like there's no joint, but you leave yourself a little joint because sometimes, again, it's a little bit off. And sometimes the fire bricks in their manufacture can be a little bit off. And if you have no joints, well, how do you make up for something being a bit off if you have no joints? I don't know. Sorry to be long-winded. The other option is to use your traditionalist, your 3 parts sand to 1 part fire clay. And the traditionalist will just do that. I don't like that because you can't build quickly. Everything slides around for a day until it sets up a bit. It's never that strong. I like adding if you're going to use 3 parts sand and 1 part clay, still with fire bricks, thin joints, add 1/2 part lime and 1/2 part type S mortar cement, or 3 parts sand, 1 part, 3 parts sand, 1 part fire clay, 1 full part lime. The hydrated lime. If you can put a dash of type S into that, it's better. I think, that type S and lime does not hold up to these huge temperatures, but if it's only, 8% of the total mix and it's surrounded by clay and sand, it'll be fine. It just firms everything up. It allows you to keep working. Where I don't know, unless you're an expert, sand and clay, everything just slides around and I don't know. But if you're hammering it down so there's almost no joint, I guess you could keep working. Anyway, that's what I would use refractory mortar. If not, 3 parts sand, 1 part clay, 1 part lime with a sprinkle of type S. Finally, let's talk about what holds the barrel. Ideally, the absolute best thing would be if you could get a piece of granite cut to the bottom round shape of the barrel, but with an extra sticking out 1 inch on all sides. Soapstone would be best. The best would be if you made friends with somebody at one of these kitchen places and they have extra pieces. And I guess most barrels are about 32 inches across, if I remember the measurement right, 32.5, something like that. But then they would have to, using their wet saw or whatever, you'd need that middle piece cut out. So, that'd be easy enough to measure a cut that would be 1 inch bigger than the bottom of the circle of the barrel you're going to put on top. But then you have to cut out that square in the middle. And that then fits, early in the video, then that fits down over top your mini stack. Now, there's only shelves on 2 sides. It's just that you have to decide what you'd want to do. You'd either rough up the bottom. You don't want, if it's glossy, like you're getting like a kitchen counter place, that won't adhere to cement. You would rough up the bottom, sand up or rough up the bottom so you could push it down into a bed of cement, like type S cement. Then I think that would hold hold level, even though, again, like the barrel is only supported on two sides. It looks like, if you watch this video back, it looks like the stove's supporting the barrel on four sides, but that's because I just stacked bricks up on the outside. So you could do that. You could, you could put a piece of wood. These darn bricks only get to 160, 170 degrees. There's just no chance it could. You could stack wood up to. In other words, whatever you place over the mini stack with the square cut in the middle, so you can place it down over the mini stack, like I showed you earlier in this video. It needs to be supported on all sides, or you would just put a nice layer of mortar on the two shelves, and then that would be so solid, so firm in its hold that you wouldn't need support on the other two sides where it would just stick out. But a good half-inch piece of granite or soapstone, and again, remember, it can't be, if you don't know mortar and cement and everything, you need to really rough up the bottom. It can't have that glaze on it like for kitchen countertops. It'll never adhere to the cement. This stove, but the looks of the stove is important to me. I think fire bricks look ridiculous. They're just like bright tan or bright yellow. You could just make a box and just light a fire in the box of fire bricks where there's hardly any air. It doesn't get good air, and it'll just smoke and smolder and make all your bricks black. I think that's cool. But again, this is not a channel on design elements and what would look good if Home and Garden TV came in. So I'll leave that up to you. But it just you just make like a chimney where you just cut off the air and it smolders and everything turns black. I think that's cool. The door is available on Amazon. It's called High Flame. I've talked about it in other videos. Even made a dedicated video on it. It's I think it's about $40. It's probably $100 cheaper than anything the equivalent. It's for $40. It's a great price. It's a great little door. You don't need a door for the bottom. You could just get pieces of metal to block it off. That's the air intake on the bottom that goes up through the grate. Of course, if you leave that wide open, you're just going to go through wood every 20 minutes. You'd have to find a way to choke it down to block it off, but to a level that allows enough air so you don't, just keep watching your chimney so you don't have any smoke. Quick overview on cost. Again, I think, what do we have, 160 some fire bricks, $2.08 to 15 cents a brick. Again, the ones on Amazon are soft fire bricks which are used in kilns. You don't need that. These are, you find a brickyard, any normal brickyard will have it. The High Flame door, about $40. You would need, again, that circular cutout to hold the barrel. The low cost option would be a half-inch piece of HardieBacker board or two half-inch pieces of HardieBacker board. There are YouTube videos on how to score that properly and cut the square in the middle of HardieBacker board, which is in the tile section of like Home Depot and Lowe's. You could do that. The best would be if you want to have a real cool stove and want to put the time in, and again, your soapstone would be the best. Soapstone absorbs heat better than granite or these other, but anything from a kitchen countertop place, as long as they would be able to cut the circle, which would be 1/2 inch larger than the outer circumference of the barrel, with the square cut in the middle, so it could be placed down the mini stack. Then you need, of course, once it vents out the side of the barrel, do you have an A-frame cabin? Where are you living? You need then whatever the cost would be, whatever the stovepipe would be to go up through the top of your cabin or outside the cabin and then up, and all the chimney stuff is expensive now too. If you go through the roof, double wall stovepipe, and again, if you were off grid or real remote cabin or survival situation, it costs absolutely the lowest. You could build this stove out of red brick if you're willing to make enough cuts, but it would really be more for wood than it would be for coal. Highly recommend for many reasons the fire brick. You would then again use your cement board to hold the barrel, and again, just for like super low cost, off-grid survival only, you could use 6-inch dryer vent coming out the side of the barrel and vent it out of your cabin with 6-inch, just cheap stuff. I think it's called dryer vent, but it's metal, but it's galvanized. You have to burn off. That's highly poisonous. If the galvanization, the zinc burns off, it is poisonous, and nasty, deadly. You have to burn through burn a mini fire in your pipes that are galvanized steel. Get all the coating off before you put it in your house. The temperatures coming out the side of the barrel are not ridiculous, even if you're going to use coal. I think that the cheaper pipe, not even stovepipe. Again, I can't recommend this, of course. Use stovepipe, use double wall. I would tell you what I would do in a survival situation or off-grid cabin where you're just desperate to get through the first winter. I think that cheap type pipe, 6-inch pipe, would hold up for many years, because the temperatures coming, the barrel and all the bricks suck enough heat out of the gases that it's just, I don't know what the temperature would be coming out. But if it was, if it's coming out at 600 or 700 degrees, that's not real hot for that type of pipe. Stovepipe, of course, is preferred. So, all right, guys, I guess I didn't expect it to go this long. Just wanted to give you all the information. Thanks for being here.